Hello and welcome back to another episode of Cyber Voices, the official podcast of the Australian Information Security Association, otherwise known as ASA. I'm your host, as always, David Willett, and it is my pleasure to have you with us as we explore the diverse voices of the Australian cyber industry. This Saturday, the 8th of March 2025, is International Women's Day, a very important day on the calendar. To help mark this occasion, we brought along Jacqui from the Australian Women in Security Network and Ryan Mclaren from Retrospect Labs. I hope you enjoy our conversation about the work that they're doing together to advance women and diversity in cybersecurity. Ryan, I know you quite well. Jacqui, we've only just met in person for the first time, but I'm well aware of your well-deserved and very positive reputation within the industry and the work that AWSN is doing. But I thought for the value of the listeners, it'd be great to hear just a little bit about both of your individual backgrounds and then a little bit about how Retrospect Labs and AWSN came together.
Well, thanks, Dave, and super excited to be here on the podcast with both yourself and, of course, the wonderful and amazing Jacqui from AWSN. Before founding Retrospect Labs, I was one of the lead incident responders for the Australian Cybersecurity Centre. So I guess my journey into cyber was a little bit untraditional. I didn't study anything cyber related or IT or engineering at university. I did economics and politics and then a Masters of Arts because I just loved university so much. I didn't want to leave my fun partying time with all my friends. And when I graduated university, I had this lofty notion that I would work in politics and that I'd really be able to give something back and, contribute to the community. Unfortunately, during my time at uni, during my postgraduate studies, I had the opportunity to intern for an MP and not casting any negative aspersions about our political system, but that wasn't the best experience, and I decided the world of politics probably wasn't best suited for me. So I thought I still wanted to do something that, contributed to society. I still wanted to give back. So I thought joining the public service would be a great idea and a way of still contributing and, achieving those goals and objectives for me of having a little bit more purpose and perhaps a little bit more meaning in my life. So I was looking as a graduate or, soon to be graduate, looking at various government departments and agencies, applied for the usual ones. Of course, got a response from DFAT pretty quickly that was, "Thank you for your application. You've been rejected. Please never contact us again." But
that was the subtext.
That was the reading between the lines there. But fortunately enough, I applied for the grad program at the Australian Signals Directorate, ASD. And of course, I had very limited knowledge of what they did at the time. I spoke to a lovely person from ASD during one of the uni careers days, and I was lucky enough to get in. Now, I got into what was at the time the largest grad intake, the largest grad cohort at ASD. So I do like to joke that I was the last one that just made that final cut due to the size of the grad intake. But that was my entry into the public service and then my entry into cyber. So I rotated during my graduate year with ASD through to a few different parts of the organisation. My final rotation was in the then CSOC, Cybersecurity Operations Centre, the precursor to the ACSC. And I was luckily enough placed into the incident response team there. So that was how I ended up in cyber with no real qualifications, skills, or knowledge. Very fortunate, very lucky to have received a lot of mentoring and training and hands-on experience whilst I was at ASD though. So that kind of set my career, and here we are over a decade later, still working in cyber.
Jacqui, what about yourself?
Yeah, so I started off studying IT. So I was really lucky that I had a family that really was embracing technology. So they really encouraged me to, use computers at a very young age, and, touch typing and all that type of thing was really important. And when it came to selecting my subjects, when it came to, what do you want to do at university, I naturally just went to IT. I just went, okay, I can touch type really fast. Maybe, technology is for me. And I was really lucky also at that time to get work experience in a help desk. So I was able to study at the same time as work in IT. So I think that was really one of those points that I always tell students. It's really important, if you can, to get work experience at the same time as when you're studying, because it really helped me then understand what I was learning at university, as opposed to, why am I learning this? I could really apply that to what I was learning. What happened then was I finished university, and then I became a Unix administrator for a year, which I loved. But then I had this travel bug. So I was driving to work one day, stuck in the Melbourne traffic, which now that I think about it isn't that bad compared to other countries. But then I went, I can't stand this traffic. I want to travel the world. So
and see the world's traffic.
And see the world. Exactly. So I told my boss just that day, made a really spontaneous decision, and then told my family, booked a Kentucky tour, and did that whole 21 days with 11 countries type thing. And I loved it so much. I went, do you know what? I'm going to stay, and then I'm going to try to work here. So I got a job at a help desk and kept traveling every weekend, spent all my money pretty much on travel. And then they saw potential in me and said, look, do you know what? We've got this accelerator program where we've taken engineers across the world and we're going to put them through this highly intensive 6-week training. So they sent us to Houston, and we did lots of networking. We did a Cisco CCNA. We did like a SANS security training. We did project management. We did defensive driving. And we basically had to finish all of that in 6 weeks, which was intense. But that was really great basis for me. And then at the end, they said, okay, so what do you want to do now? And I went, whatever is not networking, I'll do the other thing. And I said, well, it's this thing called information security. And I went, yep, I'll take it.
Yeah.
And so I pretty much worked in Europe for 14 years, to my parents' horror, of course. Going to
14 years, did you say?
14 years. So
that caught my attention as much as defensive driving did at the end of that list of Cisco courses. But we'll loop back to that later.
Oil and gas company. Do I need to say more?
Yeah, fair enough.
So to my parents' horror, obviously, I was only meant to go for 2 weeks, and I came back.
It's a long Kentucky tour.
Yes.
Bus ran out of fuel.
Exactly. But it was a really great experience because I got to learn so much from Europe, like what they were doing over in the UK. It was all about, I came back to Australia after 14 years of having incredible experience doing implementations and PKI and working really big projects, defense projects over in the UK and in France. And then I actually found it really hard to get a job back in Australia. Even though I'm Australian, I had some experience. They just didn't know what how my experience would translate after 14 years over there here. But I was lucky that I had a contact from the UK that had come over, and so he took a chance on me, luckily. And so I got a job, and that was really great.
I was uncertain coming into this interview if you were the creator or the founder of AWSN, or if you had simply carried the torch. So you are the founder, or one of?
So carried the torch, I guess, because, AWSN isn't possible without the community.
Of course. Yeah.
So there was a few of us that kind of came together and had this idea to just connect a whole lot of different women, because how it really started was I walked into an event and I was the only female in the room, and was terrified and kind of ran to the bathroom actually and found another woman. I went, do you think that I could just hang out with you? Because I'm a bit scared to go out there right now.
Yeah.
And then she kind of took me under her wing, and, she introduced me to some people in the industry. And then what we did was then just meet up for coffee. Then she introduced me to other women. Then when I introduced, we found some other women. And then what we did was just have casual coffees just before a conference. So that made it really easy for us to then go in with a little bit of confidence, because it can be quite intimidating to walk into a room of people that you're not sure you kind of belong. So what we did was we started a LinkedIn group actually when I was pregnant, actually.
Yeah.
As you do, you have so much spare time, when you've just had a baby. And that's kind of how it then started, because somebody then found the LinkedIn group. It then grew from there. So people started to join the LinkedIn group, and then somebody from overseas even found it and went, do you know, I know some others in Perth and in Canberra. How about you form a network? And so we then became the Australian Women in Security Network. My sister then kind of made a logo for me. And, then we had other people that said, hey, we have a space and there's an international speaker coming in. We can put on a little bit of food. And have a speaker come in, and that's kind of how it then formed, and just kind of grew from LinkedIn, and now we have 9 chapters across Australia. So yeah.
Pretty awesome.
We have about 4,000 members.
That's incredible.
We have 55 volunteers and some staff as well. So what we do is we try to connect, support and inspire women in security.
Mm-hmm.
And what we really concentrating on is the 3 phases. So really that retention and trying to bring women up. We're also trying to build that pipeline, and we're also wanting to change the culture of the environment so that women will kind of, stay in this sector as well.
So what are some of the key challenges that AWSN is leaning into these days?
Yeah, so it's some of the stuff that's out of our control, I guess, which is that culture element. And I think that also a lot of that comes from an understanding of, what different skills can actually bring to the table of cybersecurity. And as we were just talking about, cybersecurity is quite a young industry if we think about other industries that are out there, and it's grown so fast, right? So people understanding, first of all, like what those roles are is really hard. And what we're finding, I guess one of the most difficult things, to come back to your point, is we're getting the interest. We're helping to upskill some of these women, but it's still really hard for them to get those jobs.
I know you've been doing some work with Ryan in Retrospect. I know you did some work at Adelaide Sec and other various different conferences and events around incident response workshops and other different things. How did this relationship begin to form, and what are some of the programs that you've been running?
It's all a little fuzzy. We've been trying to remember and recall the facts. We did know each other beforehand, so I think that helped just through the cyber and, in fact, more so the startup community here in Melbourne. So that definitely helped provide a bit of a platform for our relationship. And it all really came about towards the end of 2021 when we were connected through a third-party organisation and put in touch with this idea of running some sort of an event. So they had some sponsorship behind that event, and they knew they wanted to do something involving women and cyber. So I guess they reached out to Jacqui and myself, and we kind of were able to come together and come up with this wild concoction when I think about how little time we had back then to pull it all together and make it happen. But the very first, now annual, AWSN Incident Response Competition. So we ran that competition with just a few weeks of prep time, really. And this was also during the crazy kind of COVID era of 2021. And I think we had almost 150 or around 150 women sign up and participate in that incident response-based competition, which was so heartwarming and just so fantastic to see the uptake in terms of the number of women that wanted to jump in, give incident response a go, have some hands-on time with some tools, look at forensic artifacts, think about all of the different aspects involving responding to an incident, strategic incident management, communications, media, legal, and all of that kind of stuff. But I think it was really the kind of buzz that incident response competition that started things off and kind of germinated into a whole bunch of different activities that we now do together. We try to think about all of the different skills that you really need in an incident response team. And I guess this is where maybe we have some synergies with AWSN and their mission, because it's not just about those technical skills. So what we do is we survey people when they sign up and register with a few short and hopefully painless questions in terms of their skill set and their abilities, their experience, their knowledge when it comes to cybersecurity and incident response specifically. And then what we do through some sort of funky Excel spreadsheet formula thing or something a bit more advanced than that potentially, I'm not sure, we then group them into different teams. So we try to balance those skills across the different teams. We don't want to have just a purely technically heavy focused team, and we don't want to have a team that can't get through the technical stuff because they're all experts at potentially, legal, media, regulatory aspects and things like that.
And I guess that's what we love about this partnership is that when they build these teams, some of the women that may come from a marketing background or marketing GRC background, they then have a go at the technical elements and they realize that they can do it. And even though it is a steep learning curve, they realize how fun it is and in a safe kind of environment, and vice versa for the people that are technical, they get a chance to learn more about the legal and the communications and the marketing side of what's important when it comes to a cyber incident.
Yeah. And I think Jackie's hit off on a really important point. Even though it is that kind of friendly competition nature, it is a very safe space. And there's been some really wonderful success stories that have come out of running the competition for the past 4 years now, in terms of the friendships, the networks that have then formed, and, you know, seeing women being able to help each other out, help upskill each other, and really support one another has been so fantastic.
Yeah, even people from 4 years ago, the first one, they're still in contact. They help each other out, and they're still, like, when they have a particular problem, they still go to each other, which is really fantastic. And I think that is, as you say, another benefit to the whole competition.
Yeah. So they're interactive, and people get to have a go using tools or producing real outputs that they would have to produce if they were a part of an incident response team. Sit reps for senior execs, draft media statements, legal notes and advisories, all of those kinds of things. So it's very interactive, and people get to experience perhaps some of the pain associated with responding to an incident, but also some of the, you know, the joy and the energy that you can generate from those high stress situations.
And the workshops are really important as well, because we realize that a lot of the time when it came to the training, a lot of the women found it really hard to ask questions. In university, we heard the same thing, like they didn't want to ask questions because they didn't want to sound silly. In the office, even, don't want to ask questions because I didn't want to seem silly. And in training courses even. So that's why we really wanted to, that's why we do the female-only training courses, because a lot of people ask us, they go, why is it only for females? And I'm like, well, we need to find a space so that they can then feel that they can ask as many questions. And I know that the trainers get lots of questions.
We love the questions.
Because they haven't ever been able to ask them before. So we wanted to provide an opportunity, and the trainers at Retrospect Labs have been incredibly patient and really giving with their time, which is what makes a huge difference to the confidence of a lot of these women, because they just want verification, or they want to be able to ask those questions that they haven't been able to in the past. So
be given the opportunity to, right? Yeah. And I think, you know, we're always amazed by the skills that different people bring to the competition and the training that we run with AWSN.
What's the response been from participants?
I can cover my ears if you want to give the honest view.
It's always been
you don't read the surveys?
It's always been really positive. And I think just seeing some of these women then become team leads of incident response teams, I think is a testimony to, you know, the work that you sparked, you know, something in them, and they went, well, I want to continue in incident response, and then they become team leads. And that's, I think, a really great success story.
Absolutely. I think we've had some amazing success stories over the years. We've had, you know, a number of women that have now transitioned successfully into careers in incident response. As Jackie's mentioned, some of them have even successfully worked their way up to be team leads. We've actually employed at Retrospect Labs one of the winners from the past 2 years. She was in the winning team for the incident response competition the past 2 years. So being able to kind of, you know, build this talent and this pipeline, give people the opportunity to shine and demonstrate their skills and knowledge, and see them take that and transition into careers or get that promotion. There's been some really, really amazing success stories. And that's the whole point.
What other kind of things have you got going on?
We've been working really hard at the retention piece, because that's really important. But we realized that if we were to try to encourage girls from high school to get in, and there was no one left that to be role models, that was going to be a big problem. So over the last 10 years, that's what we've been concentrating on. But now we've realized that we need to start doing that a bit earlier. We need to start attracting the new generation into cybersecurity, or at least having an awareness. So what we decided to do was a series of different cyber experience days for high school girls during the school holidays. And of course, we naturally went to the Retrospect Labs team. We obviously explored all the different providers that are out there, and they are, you know, Retrospect Labs have such an incredible, you know, platform that we knew really works. We partnered with them in order to deliver the program for our years 9 and 10. And we've done 2 of those, and we're going to do another one in January in Sydney. Yeah.
It's so exciting though, like seeing these young students and again, just their ability to dive in. So we run them through a series of CTF themed scenarios. We normally get through about 3 a day. my God, they're good at technology. They make me feel very old and very inept and incompetent. Their problem-solving skills, they're so engaged in the topic and super, super interested in cyber, which just amazes me that from such a young age, they're able to really have this level of awareness around different cyber threats, risks, their own online safety and things like that. It's all very topical at the moment, but yeah, it's been amazing doing the high school events. I didn't expect to enjoy them as much as I have, but I just love seeing these, bright, starry eyes just getting so into cyber, and hopefully we can just get some of them to, want to take that next step and think about cyber, potentially studying at uni and then one day a career in cyber.
So what are some of the different pathways in which people can get involved in AWSN and the work that you're doing?
So there's a few ways. We have events. So the 9 chapters, they do local events. They have both social events, and there's also formal events where we get a speaker to come up or a panel of speakers to talk about a particular topic. So that's the easiest way to get involved. Come in, have a look to see if you like it, meet some new people. I think, networking is really important. The other thing to think about is maybe become a mentor as well. So for those men and women out there that want to give back, we have a mentoring program, and this is a really great way to help that up-and-coming talent. And we've got a lot of incredible mentors that have just given life-changing advice and helped them really get that next job.
We've certainly got a lot of great ideas for what we can do moving forward into the future and how we might change things up a little as well. Excited to see these different initiatives like the CTF events for high school girls that we've talked about, and seeing if we can, take that nationally perhaps, as well as thinking about how we kind of continue to build and iterate on the program. Before coming along to the podcast today, I was trying to think about the rough numbers of women that have gone through the incident response competition as well as the training. And it's pretty awesome. I mean, we're into the very high several hundreds by this point, It's pretty cool to be able to have that impact together, especially because we're 2 relatively small organizations with a lot of different constraints, just trying really hard to do something that we happen to strongly both believe in. So I think that's been pretty fantastic, and it'll be great to see how we can, continue to scale that, but make sure that we're reaching the right people and we're giving them the right skills and knowledge that they need.
What we're doing this summer is with the Victorian government, we're going to be implementing running a program called the Victorian Summer of Cyber. So we're taking 44 female cybersecurity students, matching them with industry mentors and small, medium enterprises, and connecting them to do projects together over the summer holidays, a paid studentship. What's really great about that is that it gives these students that needed work experience that we've been talking about, that's super important to differentiate themselves and to really apply what that cyber lens really looks like, and help them understand what they might want to do. And it's also helping these small enterprises who can't afford really expensive consultants. They don't know where to start, and it's a really great way for them to get introduced to cybersecurity, because a lot of the time we find that they just don't know where to start and they're terrified of what's out there, so they just want to put their head in the sand and not think about it. So it's a really great way to not only help students get experience, but also these small, medium enterprises and startups to get some really smart students working there, and hopefully maybe even continue with a job.
Such a good initiative.
Is there a way for organizations to get involved with AWSN? And in the context I'm thinking about is I still have worked for so many places, especially in tech, which always raising the question of gender equality in their teams, usually in teams which are predominantly filled with men. I still see so many of them struggle with the concept of it and how they can actually go about supporting a safe and diverse environment within their teams. How can organizations work more closely with the likes of AWSN to support those goals?
We're working with the Home Affairs, the Executive Cybersecurity Council, the Workforce Working Group, and as part of the DEI working group, we're looking at some guidelines and some some things that we can give to organizations who ask those exact questions in terms of what can we do. The other element that I wanted to just highlight is that we just released some research, and that one, it came off the back of a study that we did 3 years ago with RMIT, understanding the gender dimensions of the cybersecurity industry, which showed, okay, these are some of the challenges, these are the opportunities, and wrote down, okay, these are some of the recommendations that government, corporates, individuals, community groups, researchers should really do if we want to move the dial. One of the insights from that came up that, that baseline of 17% of women working in cybersecurity. And the other insight, lots of different insights came from it, but the insight that was the most interesting to us was the fact that a lot of women were leaving after a certain age. And we went, okay, we need to delve into this. Why are women leaving the cybersecurity industry? Because to your point, if we want to increase diversity, we need to keep the women that are in our industry.
Of course, yeah.
So this research delved into some of those challenges in terms of what is happening. So it's an academic study which had a look at, okay, what's happening around the world, but also what are some of those parallel industries and what are they doing in regards to changing the dial.
Well, what are some of the key takeaways from this in terms of why are they leaving and how do we change that trend?
The three main things that came out of it, it's the culture. So we did speak a little bit about that before. So they don't feel like a sense of belonging in terms of some of the teams. I'm not saying all the teams, because I know that there are some teams that are really brilliant at this, but there are some teams that are out there that these women are feeling this way. The second part is it's the nature of the job. Like with cybersecurity, it is running at 1,000,000 miles an hour, as we know. A lot of the roles, we need to be there 24/7. A lot of the roles, there's a lot of pressure from all levels. And that can be really challenging when it comes to especially women who may be the primary caretaker of little ones. And so the third thing is that they want a sense of purpose when it comes to their career. So what we find is a lot of women, they come into cybersecurity because they want to be able to help people and give. And sometimes when they don't have the opportunity to be able to do that in their role, then they want to pursue other areas.
Do you think, if I'm allowed to ask Jackie a question, sorry, Dave,
of course you are,
less relevant. Do you think that's sometimes because women perhaps get placed in lesser roles in cyber? They're not necessarily always given the opportunity to be that technical lead or own something wholeheartedly. They're often associated with some of those less cybery, more peripheral roles. Is that possibly why they lack that sense of purpose?
Did you go to the launch this morning?
I did not.
Because we talked about that.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. And the researchers talked about that in terms of the roles in which they get placed and the recognition that they get for the skills that they bring is exactly what you just said, Ryan. Yeah. And the other program that we run is the Emerging Leader Program. And this one's really important to us because it's about setting women up with those, the kind of like the armor and the toolkits and all the skills that they need in order to be a good leader, so that when the opportunity comes for them to take that leadership role, they take it because they've got that confidence because they realize, oh, actually, I know. I actually am doing all leadership elements already, or they know what they need to do in order to, become that leader. And so we're finding that that's been really great because people are realizing that they are a leader and they're going for these leadership roles when they ordinarily may not have actually done it before in the past too.
My last question, always really enjoy asking this of people who come on the show. Jackie, if you could go back in time and give young Jackie one piece of advice about entering the cybersecurity industry, what would it be?
Do it. It's awesome. I've loved a career in cybersecurity. I actually was saying to somebody the other day, I was like, I kind of miss working in it. Like I'm in it, but I'm not in it anymore.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah. So it would be like, just go for it.
I love that. Do it. I think that's fantastic. Ryan, what about you? You go back, you find that young politics graduate who decides to go on and do his arts degree.
Masters of Arts, thank you.
Masters of Arts. That's right. I'm currently doing a creative writing degree, so it's all good. You go back and you tell, what's the piece of advice you give him about entering into this industry?
So it's a tough question for me to answer, because if I can just plug my previous employer, ASD, for a moment, I was so lucky to have such a fantastic experience there, fantastic opportunities there, and also fantastic people to work for. So one of my favorite people in the world, Jess Hunter, one of my first managers at ASD, set me up for a career in cyber. I don't know what I would go back and tell my earlier, younger self. I guess the thing I reflect on a little bit is, be prepared for the pace at which things change in cyber. I think that's probably my biggest learning over the past several years, is that kind of what you know today isn't necessarily going to be fact tomorrow.
Well, thank you both so much for the work that you're doing, both AWSN and Retrospect Labs. It's incredibly important work. I know there's still so far that we need to go, and we really do need to keep a focus on this. And thank you so much for lending us your voices today.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yes.
Just a quick reminder that CyberCon Canberra is nearly upon us. This is your opportunity to network with Australia's most influential politicians, policymakers, and business leaders in the Australian cyber industry. Also known as the Australian Cyber Conference, CyberCon Canberra takes place on the 17th to the 19th of March 2025 and sets the direction for our cyber community. Attracting over 100 leading cyber speakers and more than 1,000 delegates, this is the perfect opportunity for your team or business to be at the forefront of cybersecurity matters in Australia right now. We have some incredible keynote speakers lined up as well, including World War II Bletchley Park code-breaking saviour, Professor Sue Black of Durham University, who'll be talking about that campaign and women in cyber. Also, don't miss futurist Dr. Jordan Nguyen, who will be bringing his AI loneliness companion robot along for its first public outing. Join these two leading minds along with many others who will set the direction for Australia's cyber industry this year. Don't delay. Register to attend today at cyberconference.com.au or contact our National Events and Sponsorship Manager, Susanna Palermo, by emailing sponsorship@asa.org.au to make sure you get the best exposure for your company. All the links are in the show notes. Thank you for listening to another episode of Cyber Voices. Our music is by Sanar Garut, our show artwork is by Studio Quarantine, and we record our show at This Is a Studio in Pran, Melbourne, part of Popplant Productions. Please make sure you follow the show on your podcast platform of choice and leave us a 5-star review. This will help others find the show. Also, please follow the association on LinkedIn and Instagram. If you want to add your voice to our ever-growing chorus of diverse cyber voices, have questions, feedback, or would like to be a sponsor, you can do so by emailing us at cybervoices@asa.org.au. That's cybervoices@aisa.org.au. Are you an ASA member? If not, you should consider joining our network of over 12,000 members across Australia. An ASA membership can open doors, build professional networks, create lifetime friendships, and offer exclusive training, events, and other perks. Become a member today by heading to our website at asa.org.au. That is all for today. I hope you will join us again next time on Cyber Voices.